Cracking the Nazi code, the untold story of Canada's greatest spy, is the thrilling true story of the first spy to crack Hitler's deadly code.
Author Jason Bell was the first person to gain access to Winthrop Bell's declassified papers in order to tell this incredible piece of Canadian history, and he joins us now. Welcome, Jason. First up, we just have to let everyone know you are in no relation related to Winthrop. You just happen to share a surname.
That is correct.
Okay. There you go. We've established that. Now, let's get to the start of this and tell us more how Winthrop became Canada's greatest spy.
Sure. Well, he was a graduate student in philosophy before World War I. When the war broke out, he was arrested and sent to prison camp. And after the war, he went to London, where he met with the Canadian Prime Minister, Robert Borden. And Borden was so impressed by what he knew about the German situation, he recruited him into MI6. So Canada paid Winthrop Bell's bills for MI6. MI6 was sort of broke at the time because of the massive spending they'd had to conduct during World War I. And so Canada was paying his bills. MI6 was making sure the money got to the right place. And then Bell was sent for his espionage mission into Germany, into Berlin, where he discovered the Nazis.
And in doing so, how did Winthrop crack Hitler's code and the final solution?
Sure. Well, he had already in 1918, when he was talking to Robert Borden, he was describing a plot within the German military that saw World War I as a race war. So he was already onto this group early. Winthrop, who was also trained as a historian in addition to being trained as a philosopher and as an expert in German, realized what Hitler was saying. He was coding this program. He couldn't come right out and say that he meant to exterminate populations, but he was giving examples of how this had happened in history and saying that was the right way to fight. Mm-hmm. So he wrote this up in 1939. He sent it to his intelligence contacts in Britain and Canada, in the United States. He also sent it out to newspapers in early 1939. At that point, nobody believed him in the press. The media said that Winthrop was trying to make Hitler look bad. When the war started, his warnings were published in Canadian newspapers. It was the first warning by 3 years. So the next warnings about the Holocaust did not appear until 1942.
Mm-hmm. Well, as a matter of fact, Bell's findings and alerts, they were suppressed. So how did his intelligence still manage to sabotage the Nazis?
So Winthrop was personally briefing the heads of MI6, and he convinced them that this German situation needed attention. And so Winthrop's cover was a reporter, so he was working as a Reuters reporter, and so his warnings were going out to the press. The Foreign Office, some powerful figures there, were suppressing the publication of his book. He wanted to warn about the Nazi danger. This was already in 1919. He wanted to warn about the Nazi danger and show how to defeat them. A powerful politician in Britain's Foreign Office blocked that request, but MI6 was still able to get things out through Reuters and through newspapers that described this secret army of 1 million men that Germany had in 1919, that described anti-Semitic violence, attacks on Jews in the streets. And so people like Winston Churchill were understanding these warnings and were warning Parliament already in 1920 that this German army needed to be countered. And so I think that's what made the difference between victory and defeat. If Britain had not prepared, the free world would have gotten run over by this genocidal war machine.
Before we let you go, speaking and on the topic of the suppression of documents and not having full disclosure, wanted to just get your thoughts on what happened in the House of Commons when we saw a former Nazi appear before the House. What are your thoughts on that and that occurring?
This is, I mean, it's the real problem is that because of the classification of documents, politicians don't always realize what's going on, and you really need to have figures who can wear these different hats, so they can do the intelligence work and they can also understand diplomatic and political relations. This is a very rare group of people, so oftentimes the Secret Service people kind of talk to themselves and the politicians talk to themselves. And that obviously was a deeply embarrassing incident in terms of international relations that could have been forestalled if there had been greater communication. One of the things I talk about in my book is that Winthrop Bell is really a good example for today for just how to do this, how to keep all these moving parts, in the right direction and doing the right things.
All right. Well, Cracking the Nazi Code, the untold story of Canada's greatest spy. It is available now. Jason, appreciate you coming in this morning. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for having me.